Why do so many people vanish from your life after you turn 70? It's not always about bitterness, loneliness, or resentment. Sometimes it's about a deeper realization, a quiet, personal awakening that changes how we choose to spend our time. You may find that your desire to visit others isn't what it used to be. And if that sounds like you, let me tell you this: you're not alone, and you're not wrong. In fact, there's a wisdom behind it that most people never talk about. In today's video, we're going to unpack 6 powerful reasons many older adults stop visiting others after 70, and we're not just talking about convenience or health. These reasons go deeper. They explain why emotional boundaries, stepping away from certain social habits, is not a sign of decline, but a sign of growth, of clarity, of choosing peace over pretense. This isn't about turning your back on people, it's about finally turning toward yourself. So if you've ever found yourself saying, "I just don't feel like going anymore," stay with us, because by the end of this video, you might not only understand why you feel this way, but you might also start feeling proud of it. Number 1. Emotional boundaries. After 70, one of the most surprising awakenings is realizing just how much emotional energy certain visits require. You might expect physical fatigue after going out, but the emotional drain sneaks up on you. Conversations that used to feel light-hearted can now feel heavy. Listening to others complain, manage drama, or talk endlessly without asking how you are can leave you mentally exhausted. You walk away from those visits not refreshed, but depleted. It becomes clear that not every interaction is good for your spirit. And while people often assume you're pulling away because of age or illness, the truth is you're just more selective with where you invest your heart. Emotional boundaries become a form of survival, not selfishness. You're no longer willing to sacrifice your peace just to keep up appearances or meet someone else's expectations. This shift is actually a powerful sign of psychological growth. In earlier years, we're taught to please others, to be polite, to show up even when we don't feel like it. But aging invites us to unlearn some of that. It teaches us that protecting your emotional space isn't rude, it's healthy, especially when you've spent decades putting others first. There comes a time when you have to honor your own needs too. Think about someone like Paul, 82. He used to visit his brother's house every other Sunday, but over time, he noticed something. Every visit turned into an argument about politics, the past, or old family wounds. Paul would leave feeling anxious and angry, needing hours to calm down. One day, he quietly decided to stop going. His brother didn't understand, but Paul did. He realized that peace was more valuable than routine, and that just because someone is family doesn't mean they're good for your emotional health. Time revaluation. Setting emotional boundaries also includes knowing when a visit is no longer mutual. There's a difference between being wanted and being expected. You might feel it when someone seems distracted during your time together, or checks their phone instead of truly listening. That feeling of being tolerated rather than cherished becomes impossible to ignore with age. So instead of chasing one-sided relationships, you start preserving your time for people who uplift you. This isn't about cutting people off or harboring resentment. It's about honoring your emotional well-being in the same way you would honor a sore back or aching feet. You wouldn't walk 5 miles on a twisted ankle, so why walk into conversations that twist your heart? And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give yourself after 70 is the permission to stop showing up in places that no longer feel like home. Number 2. Time revaluation. One of the wisest realizations that comes with age is this: time is no longer something you trade freely. In your younger years, you may have spent entire afternoons at family gatherings or hours chatting with neighbors out of politeness, thinking there was always more time to spare. But once you pass 70, something shifts. Time no longer feels endless. It feels rare, precious, and incredibly personal. That means every moment you give to someone has to feel worth it. not in a transactional way, but in a deeply emotional sense. This isn't about being selfish, it's about honoring what your time truly means to you. Now, every hour spent with others is 1 hour not spent on your own healing, resting, or exploring what still brings you joy. At this age, you understand more than ever that there are only so many mornings left to sip your coffee in peace, only so many walks to take in the sun, only so many books you'll read or songs you'll hum quietly to yourself. That's not depressing, that's empowering. This is why many seniors gradually stop visiting certain people, not out of resentment, but because they've redefined time, redefined what their time is for. It's for the things that replenish them, not the things that drain them. It's for deep, meaningful connections, not small talk that goes in circles. It's for their own dreams, no matter how small or simple, rather than constantly adjusting to fit into someone else's plans. Take someone like Lorraine, 76. For decades, she drove 3 hours every month to visit her cousin. They'd chat, eat, watch the same television shows, and then she'd drive back. But after a while, Lorraine began to notice that those visits no longer gave her the joy they once did. They weren't bad, but they weren't fulfilling either. And 3 hours each way started to feel like a hefty price. One day she said, "I'd rather spend that time at the lake with my sketch pad." And so she did. And you know what? She felt lighter, more alive. It's a form of maturity that many don't talk about. The ability to say no, thank you, and not feel bad about it. You're not being rude. You're being wise with what you have left. You're curating your life like an art piece, choosing the colors and moments that feel right, discarding the ones that don't serve your peace anymore. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 3, emotional drain. One of the biggest reasons older adults stop visiting people after 70 is because the emotional cost simply becomes too high. It's not about being antisocial, it's about being emotionally honest. When you were younger, you might have tolerated small talk, gossip, or even the subtle power games some people play. But now your tolerance for emotional clutter has worn thin, and that's not a flaw, that's emotional maturity. At this stage in life, many seniors start noticing how drained they feel after certain visits. It's not that anything dramatic happens during these encounters. In fact, it's often the opposite. It's the emptiness of the interaction that's most exhausting. You listen to people talk about things that don't matter to you anymore. You nod at conversations that feel repetitive, shallow, or disconnected from who you've become. And when you leave, you don't feel uplifted. You feel depleted. This kind of emotional fatigue is often misunderstood. Others might say you're becoming distant or losing your spark, but the truth is, you've just outgrown the need to perform for others. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself or justify your silence. You've spent decades showing up, smiling politely, doing what's expected, and now, finally, you're choosing to prioritize your inner peace. Psychologically, this shift is part of something called emotional selectivity theory. As people age, they become more selective about who they spend time with, focusing on relationships that are emotionally meaningful. That means cutting out interactions that feel obligatory, transactional, or emotionally empty. You begin valuing depth over frequency, and you realize that solitude is often more nourishing than forced connection. Take someone like Harold, 74 years old. He used to visit his extended family every weekend. Even when the gatherings left him feeling invisible, no one really asked how he was doing. No one really listened. They were too busy talking over one another or showing off their latest gadgets or vacations. One day, Harold simply stopped going, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. He now spends that time gardening, reading, or walking with a close friend who genuinely sees him, and he's never felt more emotionally grounded. If you've ever felt drained after visiting someone and not just tired but emotionally stripped, it's your inner wisdom telling you something. It's saying you don't have to keep giving pieces of yourself to people who don't value them. And once you hear that message, you can't unhear it. You realize that choosing emotional peace over social performance isn't selfish, it's survival. It's the kind of wisdom that only comes with age. Number 4, physical energy. Something no one warns you about after 70 is how every outing, no matter how simple, starts to feel like a full-day mission. Even a short visit to someone's house can take more out of you than expected. You may begin with good intentions, get dressed, grab a little gift or dessert, head out the door, but by the time you return home, it feels like you've climbed a mountain. And this shift in stamina isn't weakness. It's simply the body's natural way of asking for more respect. After 70, your energy becomes a limited, precious resource. You begin to see it not just in how much you can do in a day, but in how long it takes to recover afterward. A 2-hour visit might cost you the rest of the day or the next. And when people don't see that cost, they often misjudge your absence. They might say you never come around anymore, but they don't see what it takes for you to come around at all. Behind each decision not to go is a quiet weighing of what your body can handle versus what it can't. There's also a growing awareness of how little time and energy you want to spend in discomfort, sitting on hard chairs, smiling through long conversations, eating food that doesn't agree with your body, navigating stairs or driveways with shaky knees. These things didn't matter much when you were 40 or 50, but they matter a lot now. And rather than push yourself through them just to make others feel good, you start choosing rest over effort, comfort over obligation. From a psychological standpoint, this is part of what's known as embodied wisdom, the idea that the body carries its own kind of intelligence. It knows when enough is enough. It signals that your energy has value and must be protected, not spent on things that bring no joy or nourishment. And for many older adults, honoring that wisdom becomes a new form of self-respect. Take Barbara, age 78. She used to attend weekly coffee get-togethers with a group of old friends, but lately, just the act of driving there, parking, walking across the lot, and sitting on a wobbly bench would leave her sore for hours. When she finally decided to stop going, her friends were surprised. One even said, "But we miss you." And Barbara gently replied, "I miss me too, especially when I overdo it." The truth is, saying no to a visit doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you've started listening to what your body needs, listening to the quiet exhaustion that builds up after too much social energy is spent. You're no longer running on the same fuel you used to, and pretending otherwise only leads to burnout. Choosing fewer outings, shorter visits, or simply staying home is not laziness, it's wisdom in motion. Number 5, emotional economy. Something powerful happens when you reach a certain age. You start to understand the value of your emotional energy, and just like you wouldn't throw your money away on things that give you nothing back, you stop spending your feelings on people or situations that only leave you feeling empty, agitated, or unseen. That's what we call emotional economy, and it's one of the most liberating truths no one tells you about growing older. For decades, you may have tolerated certain behaviors, forgiven too quickly, tried to keep the peace at your own expense. You might have smiled through hurtful comments, bit your tongue to avoid arguments, or showed up to family functions even when you were exhausted or disrespected. Why? Because you believed it was your role to be agreeable, to keep relationships going, peace over politeness. But by the time you're past 70, that mass starts to slip, and for good reason. You realize that your emotional battery isn't as quick to recharge anymore. Negative energy lingers longer, stress hits harder, And most of all, you no longer feel the need to prove yourself or win approval. That clarity gives you permission to say, I don't need this in my life anymore. Whether it's a friend who always criticizes, a sibling who drains your spirit, or a neighbor who only calls to complain, you begin to choose peace over politeness. This is not about becoming cold or uncaring. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You begin to invest deeper in the people who bring warmth, encouragement, and mutual respect. You stop chasing those who don't call back. You stop explaining yourself to people who never understood you in the first place. You begin to treat your emotional world like a garden. You weed out the toxicity so the joy can grow. Take Walter, for instance. He's 82 and used to call his son every Sunday. Even though the conversations always ended in tension, his son never asked how he was doing, always rushed through the call, and often made snide comments about his choices. After a while, Walter said, "This isn't love, this is duty." So he stopped calling, not to punish, but to protect himself. And slowly, he noticed he felt more at peace. He began putting that same energy into a neighbor he bonded with over crossword puzzles and jazz music. That's what emotional economy looks like. At this stage of life, you start to realize that you have a right, no, a responsibility, to protect your emotional well-being. You've earned the right to guard your peace without apology. You no longer have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to chase love or convince anyone of your worth. You know who you are, what you offer, and what you will no longer tolerate. This is a kind of emotional wisdom that younger people often can't fully grasp yet, but it becomes crystal clear after 70. You stop giving energy to people who only bring chaos, and in that stillness, in that quiet distance, you rediscover parts of yourself that were buried under years of emotional obligation. You finally feel what it's like to breathe freely, with no guilt, no drama, no noise, and that's not selfish. That's survival. Number 6, self-respect awakening. There comes a point in your later years where you stop asking for permission to value yourself, and when that moment arrives, something shifts inside you. The need to be liked fades. The fear of disappointing others dissolves, and instead a deeper instinct takes over, the instinct to protect your dignity. That's what I call the self-respect awakening. It doesn't come with fireworks. It comes quietly, usually after one too many times of being overlooked, dismissed, or misunderstood. But once it arrives, it changes how you show up in the world forever. When you're younger, it's easy to confuse kindness with compliance. You go out of your way to help, to please, to smooth things over. You shrink your needs so others feel bigger. You downplay your successes so others don't feel small. You say yes when you really want to say no, because the cost of disappointing others seems too high. But after 70, the cost of betraying yourself starts to feel even higher. That's when you begin choosing differently. You decline invitations that feel like obligations. You stop entertaining people who treat you like a backup plan. You walk away from conversations that drain your spirit. You stop lowering your standards just to feel included, because deep down you realize something simple and powerful. Peace is more important than popularity. There's a quiet power that older people carry. You can see it in the way they walk, talk, and hold eye contact. It's not arrogance. It's earned self-respect. It's the result of decades of being underestimated, misunderstood, and told to settle down. It's the inner knowing that says, I've lived long enough to know what I deserve. And with that knowledge, you begin to create boundaries, not out of anger, but out of self-love. Consider Marilyn, age 76. For most of her life, she was the one everyone called when they needed a favor, babysitting grandkids, hosting holidays, lending money, organizing events. She did it all, often at the expense of her own health. But a year ago, she decided to change. She politely declined the next big family event, and instead took a quiet weekend at the lake by herself. Her daughter was shocked. "But Mom, everyone's counting on you." And Marilyn gently replied, "For once I'm counting on me." That decision didn't just change one weekend, it changed her entire dynamic with her family. They learned to respect her space, and she learned to honor her needs. This self-respect awakening is not about shutting people out. It's about showing people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. When you stop begging for scraps of attention, people either rise to meet you or fall away, and either way, you win because you're no longer depending on others to give you worth. You're standing in it. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Final thoughts. If you've reached the age of 70 and found yourself pulling back from social visits, choosing solitude over small talk, or even wondering why your circle seems smaller now, I want you to know something very important. You're not broken. You're not giving up. What you're doing, often without even realizing it, is stepping into a wiser, more authentic version of yourself. Aging, for all its challenges, is also one of the most clarifying experiences we go through. It strips away the fluff, the noise, the shoulds and have-tos. It helps you see with sharper eyes and feel with a softer heart. It reveals what truly matters and what never did. And part of that revelation is this: not every relationship is meant to last forever. Not every invitation is meant to be accepted. And not every version of yourself is meant to stay the same. You are evolving, and that evolution sometimes means walking away from people, places, or routines that no longer serve your peace. It means protecting your energy like it's sacred, because it is. It means choosing depth over drama, honesty over harmony, and truth over tradition. And while that may seem lonely at times, it's actually where your truest self begins to shine. So if you've stopped visiting people as often, don't let guilt whisper that you're being selfish. You're being selective. If you find yourself enjoying quiet mornings instead of noisy gatherings, that doesn't make you distant. It means you're listening to the rhythm of your own soul. And if others don't understand, that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into your wisest season. You've earned this peace. You've earned the right to prioritize yourself, and you've earned the wisdom to know that stepping back isn't the same as giving up. It's growing up, gracefully. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.